Welcome everyone to the Lincoln City Council for Monday, January 13. And I'd like all of us to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent meditation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome everyone. And in accordance with LB 898, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the back of the chamber. And today we have our mayor here to give the Mayor's Award of Excellence for the month of December. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, members of the council. Thank you for having me. The Mayor's Award of Excellence for December is going to be presented to Senior Engineering Technician Taylor Buss. He is from the Project Delivery Division of Lincoln Transportation and Utilities. And he was nominated in the categories of loss prevention, productivity, and safety for his work to revise a program that affects everyone across the city, sidewalk repair. The nominators were former LTU Director Mickey Esposito, Assistant Director Lonnie Birkland, Assistant City Engineer Thomas Schaefer, and Senior Engineer Erica Nunez for Taylor's work with revision of the sidewalk repair program. And because sidewalk repair funds are limited, as you know, LTU prioritizes these repairs. The ones that get top priority are those with grade separations of 2 inches or more, and those that lack ADA compliant curb ramps. And in the past, LTU mainly used the remove and replace method to fix priority repairs, and they did that at more than 400 locations a year. Because of the volume of repairs that have been requested, though, scheduling and completing those repairs for even those priority locations has oftentimes stretched over construction seasons. So when Taylor came along and was assigned to the sidewalk program in 2018, he brought a new focus and new ideas on how to save the city time and money and reduce trip hazards across our community. He proposed the use of a precision cutting tool to shave off the elevation in the sidewalk, and he also zeroed in on the neighborhoods with higher than average numbers of sidewalk defects. So Taylor worked with precision concrete cutting on a pilot project in University Place. A neighborhood survey there showed that 237 of the 241 properties needed sidewalk repairs. Wow. And they determined that 92% of the problem areas could actually be addressed with the concrete cutting method. So the work that the contractor did took less than a week to complete, with a total savings cost savings of about 53% over the remove and replace method. The new process also had some additional advantages. It reduced the need to haul away 17.3 tons of concrete. Fewer property damage complaints were reported. Residents had more use of the sidewalk during construction, and project team members could focus more time on other higher priority projects across the community. So the successful program was continued in 2019, and for 2020, final repairs are being planned for the Lincolnshire neighborhood and from Van Dorn to Nemaha, 14th to 17th. A recent survey showed that 91% of those repairs could be completed with the concrete cutting method. So as you can see, this is a really focused and targeted approach to dealing with this issue. The nominators wrote that, quote, Taylor is more than doubling our buying power in the sidewalk program and stretching taxpayer dollars further and reducing trip hazards all over the city. So with that in mind, it is my distinct pleasure to present Taylor with the Mayor's Award of Excellence for December, and I hope you will please join me in congratulating him for his hard work and commitment, and maybe help me track down where the award is, because I think it's back there. Now I'd like to invite Assistant Director Lonnie Birkland to come say a few words.
Good afternoon, Council. I won't take much of your time, but I basically just wanted to reiterate that Mr. Taylor Buss is one of our awesome employees. We have a lot of those, as you know, but this is a fine young man that has taken a lot of ownership in our sidewalk program. As you know, like a lot of our infrastructure, we have challenges. We have not eradicated all the problems. We've got plenty of locations on priority repair and other inquiries from citizens that we keep continuing to chip away at. But a lot of the things that Taylor has worked on are really helping us meet those challenges. When we talk about annual contractors in different quadrants of the city, Taylor's helping to manage those construction projects, coordinate with them on the procurement and kind of the follow-up and inspection with the rest of our project delivery folks. We came and stood before you a few months ago as a reminder of some of the snow removal complaints that we get during the winter time. Taylor and his folks get to go out and address all those as well, and he does an excellent job at rolling up all of that and coordinating that. And then this recent sort of innovative process with doing concrete sawing. You might be familiar with right out front in City Hall here. There's some of that has been done in the past. Also some things we're looking at with mud jacking, foam jacking, leveling of panels. If you can imagine typical homeowners and residents with removing concrete, the muddy mess that a skid loader or other equipment, jackhammers and things do, and getting into sprinkler systems once in a while. The fact that we can go in and sort of accomplish block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, hundreds and hundreds of these types of repairs in a non-intrusive and very quick fashion is really pretty awesome. And so we'll be back to talk with you more about, budgets and sidewalks and things in coming months, but I just want you to know that this is yet another pretty bright spot, sweet spot in our program, and I'm super duper proud of Taylor and really the rest of the team that's been working on that. So thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And now we have LTU Interim Director Tom Cassidy, who's here to say a few words.
Great job, Taylor. And Mayor, thanks for acknowledging this. Pay attention when you're out there on sidewalks in Lincoln, and you'll see more and more of these. And wow, along 84th Street, for example, the amount of work that would have had to happen there is just incredible. So it's great technology, and Taylor's done a fabulous job on bringing this to Lincoln. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. And Taylor, would you like to come say a few words?
This is very humbling, so it's great. I appreciate it. There's certain things you want to hang your hat on, so to speak, in your career, and I think this is definitely one of those that I could do that with. So appreciate the award. Thank you to my wife for coming and all of my coworkers over there. There's a ton of them showing support, and they were all part of this as well. And I want to make that known. They absolutely had a huge part of this success. So thank you.
I just want to say something, Taylor, this project is near and dear to my heart because I walk my dogs all over. And you can imagine, as a candidate running for a lot of political offices, I have walked a lot of neighborhoods all over the city. And, I would start to take pictures of sidewalks or pictures of buildings or pictures of trash. And I think Chad Blaha probably went crazy after every walking precinct, 'cause I would send him all these pictures. But I can tell you, that is going to make such a huge difference, not only to people like me who walk their dogs, but seniors who go out walking and families and strollers. It is really important work that you do. And I'm really proud of all of our employees in the city who come up with these innovative and creative ways of tackling these problems. And most importantly, it's also near and dear to my heart when you're saving our taxpayers a lot of money by finding really great solutions to solving these problems. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes,
Of
I want
course.
some of that. As Lonnie said, I've noticed out in front of City Hall, there's this, you look down and you see this unique grazed off part of the sidewalk. You go, that's great. And then I've noticed the other parts of the city, I thought, we should be doing more of this. And then just last week, I live in the near south. You got to that neighborhood just not too long ago, and I was walking home and saw that the sidewalks were all nice and neat, and there were no more trip and fall hazards. It's wonderful. Thank you. I'm a person who walks a lot too, and just every now and then you'll catch your toe on something and you go, well, what can we do about that?
Right.
Is that what you say, Benny?
Yeah, that's exactly the words I use.
Okay.
I usually say, thank you for the opportunity to kiss the ground. You've done a great service to our community, and as she said, saved us a lot of money too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The
Great.
kind words.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all.
Yay.
Thank you for your
Yay.
time.
Congratulations again. And thank you, Mayor. And we will go on to regular city council business, and it is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda under public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, then those opposed. Then the applicant may make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating name, address, and whether you are speaking in favor of or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last meeting of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on an issue not on the agenda for that date nor planned for a future agenda. And I believe tonight is an open mic night. So will the clerk please call the first item of business?
Yes, just a reminder to the public, due to the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, City Council will not meet next Monday, January 20th. We ask those of the general public coming forward to testify to please clearly state your name, spell your name, give your address, and sign in on the sign-in sheet lying on the podium. Testifiers may use either microphone, and there is a sign-in sheet by each microphone. We ask those individuals from city staff who are testifying to please state your name, title, and the department you work for. Our first item of business is our public hearing consent agenda, items 1 through 3. Is Brody Weber here?
Yes, Mr. Weber is here.
Come on down.
Good afternoon. I am Sarah Hoyle, the Director of Lincoln Lancaster Human Services, and this is Brody Weber, and I am so excited today to introduce him as our newest member of the Keno Prevention Advisory Committee. As you all are well aware, the Keno Advisory Committee gives out many grants to our most vulnerable residents to prevent crisis types of situations. And Brody comes with the ambition, the education, and the history of providing public service to our community. So he is a great candidate for this. I'll let you tell me more.
I just have a few remarks that I just want to say. Good afternoon, members of the City Council. My name's Brody Weber, and I live at 5255 Northwest 12th Street. I want to thank Mayor Larian Gaylor Baird, as well as her wonderful staff, especially Adele Burke, for this opportunity to serve both my city and county in this capacity. I also want to thank Councilwoman Ward, who's been a great resource as I went through this process. And I want to thank my parents, Darren and Lori, my Aunt Shell, my Grandma Ivy, her friend Lily, and my really good friend Ed, who are here today supporting me. Civic service has always been important to who I am. I've lived in Lincoln my entire life, and it's given me a lot of great opportunities. So I always jump, at the opportunity to serve them. I currently serve on the Board of Directors for Community Action Partnership of Lancaster and Saunders County, and I also serve on the Board of Directors for the Highlands Neighborhood Association. I'm also a member of the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce Young Professionals Group, a past participant of the Lincoln Public School Citizens Academy, and I'm also an assistant debate coach at Lincoln Southwest High School. I'd be honored to serve as a member of the Keno Human Service Advisory Board because I think that my role at Community Action, where I'm one of 15 members who oversees a $12.5 million budget, has really helped me be prepared. I have a fiduciary obligation in that role to be a good steward of public funds, making sure every penny is spent wisely, and I think that's a trait that I can bring to the Keno Advisory Board as we help overview and distribute 5% of the gross proceeds from Keno. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them, but I'm really appreciative of this opportunity.
Well, thank you very much. We're very fortunate to have you volunteer for this amazing board as well. So are there any questions for Mr. Brody?
Look that way.
Tammy?
No questions, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add my congratulations and support of Brody Weber. No one finer could have chosen to serve, so thank you for that. And as you heard, his list of service to our community is long, and not only just to Northwest Lincoln and the Highlands where he grew up, but to all of our community. So thank you for saying yes, Brody, and I just highly recommend his appointment. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Now, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on this item? I think you're a shoo-in, so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Teresa, next item.
All right, if no one else wishes to come forward to speak on any of these items, we can vote on them. Items 1A through E were introduced by McGinnis.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by McGinnis and seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Item 2A was introduced by Schob.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Schob, seconded by McGinnis. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Next then are public hearing liquor resolutions. Those giving testimony are asked to come forward and raise their right hand for the clerk to administer the oath. After the oath, witnesses shall state their names and addresses. I'll call items 4A and B together. They are the application of Kasumi Sushi for a Class I liquor license at 151 North 8th Street, Suite 100, and the related manager application.
Hello, everyone.
Would you raise your right hand?
Yes,
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. State your names and addresses.
Okay, welcome. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure, yeah. My name is Disha, last name is W.U. The address is 151 North 8th Street, Suite 100. It's called Kasumi Sushi. We try to open the end of this month to do all-you-can-eat sushi, kind of Japanese style food, and we will have some sake. I think sake and sushi is a great combo. So, I don't know.
yes, that's the reason we bring the sushi restaurant in Haymarket. We currently own a few restaurants in Lincoln, but we would like to add one more restaurant in Haymarket. If a different concept is all you can eat, is totally different. That's why we bring to Haymarket.
I better not tell my husband about that because you could go broke, you know. Well, welcome. That's great. Could you state your name for the record as well?
Yeah, my name is Hui. First name is Hui. Last name is Guo. Guo.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much. What are the names of the other two restaurants?
Great will.
Okay,
Yeah. So it's one in downtown, one is the south and Wendell.
okay, terrific. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item?
You can sit down.
Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I move approval of items 4A and B.
Second.
Introduced by Christensen, seconded by Washington. Any discussion? Please call roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
I had to blow my nose.
Yeah, go. While you do that, I'd like to say that Councilman Christensen, we missed you last week. We floundered at this part because we couldn't find anybody to come up. It took us a while.
I had to
Yeah.
hang on that.
Got it done.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
No, that's okay. All right.
All right, next are our public hearing resolutions. Item 5A is a resolution supporting and providing funding for the City-County Complete Count Committee related to the 2020 United States Census. Does anyone wish to come forward for this item?
Yeah. I was going to say, Madam Chair, I asked for this item to be put on the agenda. We, the Complete Count Census Committee, have been working hard since September of last year to help promote the census, and I'd like to ask Mr. Carey to help me by filling in all the good details of wonderful things we've been done. Except for the census bingo, I want that one.
Right. David Carey, Director of the Planning Department. Yes, so as Councilman Shob has mentioned, that the both representation from the City Council and the County Board have provided leadership on the Complete Count Committee that has been formed. The Planning Department's involved because we are the repository for the census information and data. We have been for many decades now, and we continue to fill that role. And so part of that is to assist in making sure we get as complete a count as possible. Just to point out that for a household in the state of Nebraska, over a 10-year period, that household provides nearly $52,000 in federal grants and aid. So if you miss one, as a state, we're losing out on that, and as a community as well. So it is important to get as complete a count as possible. So what has happened in the past is the county commissioners thankfully have provided some funding as well in the same amount that's being requested today from the City Council. That funding is already being used to provide some advertising. Billboards in particular are going to be starting to go up around the community. There are other activities that have been identified and will be implemented as well. So the funding that would come from the city to match that county contribution would be used for things like direct mailings, things like that we can't quite get to with the funding that we have so far. So we're very appreciative of that. We're appreciative for the leadership that Councilman Shob has shown on this, and I'm available for any other questions you might have.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Councilman Shob, I forgot to ask you at our pre-council, and you probably said this, Mr. Carey. So we, as a city, contribute $10,000 every year, and the county contributes $10,000 every year for a total.
This is a one-time.
Okay, so this is the first time we've done this?
Yes,
Okay.
and quite frankly, it's decennial in nature, so it would be every 10 years if we were to do it in the future as well. So
I should have said every time we do the census, so. But we've not done this in the past.
This level of funding support, both from the county and the city, hasn't been present in the past.
Okay.
There has been funding that has come from the U.S. Census, but not to this level.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
May I, Matt?
Yes.
Councilman Ward, this is a little bit in, many states have their own state complete count census committee, and this year the legislature wasn't able to establish one. We thought it was so important that Lincoln, and there are several complete count committees within Lancaster County operating independently of the city, and several other communities across the state have engaged to make sure that every resident of the state of Nebraska is counted. So there are several committees functioning, and as Mr. Carey said, the county has earmarked money, the city has earmarked money, and this is for the city council to do a matching amount.
Thank you.
Christensen, I do have that budget here. I'll be happy. I've tried to print it. I'll get you a copy of that as quickly as we can.
Thank
And
you.
I have to tell you that I attended the 2020 census meeting of all the groups that are working throughout the state of Nebraska, and it was really exciting to see so many different groups represented and talking about how important it is to them. And these groups, in turn, are doing efforts and raising awareness to members of their community as well as members outside their community on how important it is that we continue to promote the census. And I think the most important thing about it is that there are some groups that have a sense of uneasiness about this, about the information, but it is retained in the strictest of confidence. It is not shared with any other governmental agency. Only the Census Bureau tabulates this information. And so, and then the results are en masse disseminated, and it's essential for, planning purposes as government plans for growing communities. And it's also important, I know Mr. Carey stated, that we get federal dollars that the state of Nebraska depends on, that funding for critical programs that help the people in our community are essential. So this is a big deal, and it's only done every 10 years, and so we want to make sure that we're doing our part in getting the word out to as many different groups as possible. And I know one of the meetings that Councilmember Schob was present at, they had a number of the groups that are typically those that are underreported take and send their representatives, as well as so many of the nonprofit organizations throughout the city that service a lot of groups. And so there is a tremendous collaboration and cooperation all across the board to make sure that we have the best census count possible, because and I look on this investment by the city council and matching the pledge from the county board is a great return on our investment to make sure that we do everything we can. So.
Madam Chair, one cleanup item, and I failed to do this, and please forgive me. Madam Chair, Councilwoman Raybold and I serve as co-chairs from the city to the Complete Count Census Committee, where they have 2 county representatives. So this is a co-chair of the committee. Yeah.
Well, Benny does most of the work, so. But is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on this item? Thank you very much. Let's go on to the next.
All right, next is item 5B, accepting a report of new and pending claims against the city for December 1st through the 31st, 2019.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to testify on a claim against the city? Please come forward. Come on down. And, okay. Or you can come and sit in the front row. That way you're ready to go.
Okay, I'm Michelle Ottens, and I don't know if this is when I was supposed to come up or not.
Yes, it is. It's good time.
Okay, so this is my son Jacob. What I've come for is because I filed, I guess it's called a tort claim against the city for damages to my car. And this is all kind of a mess. This is the car in question. If you see all the damage from the roof, down the door, the windows, everything, that's the primary, which totaled the car out. And it was taken the morning after. The tree fell on it at 8:47 in the morning. They had already cleared the tree and everything. The city had already cleared the tree by then. This, I guess it'd be easier to look at it like that, is a picture of the tree where the branch come from, as well as, if you look to the far side, the tree that it's sitting adjacent to. This one's actually a better picture of the 2 trees and the cars parked right there. Because this one, the front one is the one that received the majority of the damage. The second one, which is my car also, received some damage, but it wasn't like totaled like the other car. As you can see from where I had emailed all of you, I had let you know that the trees were like literally 5 to 10 feet apart. And the wooden privacy fence behind the trees over there is actually on the other side of the sidewalk. That belongs to the property owner, who had filed a report. Well, he told me he filed a report, but apparently when he talked to the city attorney, he said that he just made a phone call and had made a report apparently to them and didn't follow through with any more process because it wasn't significant enough in damage, I guess. But it took out, the adjacent tree actually took out a part of his fence, that privacy fence there. And The trees, if you did, I don't know, maybe I should leave it up for a second. The trees, if you look at them, they're notably primarily the same in size, so they would have been planted roughly around the same time. They're both on city-county property, and when the damages happened to my car was actually in August of last year, and then the damage to the fence was approximately January or February, and they have another report that was on obstruction from trees that was made. I had a whole spiel wrote down, sorry, I kind of scattered here. The other report was made in October of 2018. So, and it was for obstruction because of the tree, and the time of the incident. Oops, I turned it over, I'm sorry. Time of the incident would have been roughly the 2:54 time frame, which is, it was 64 degrees, 62 dew point, 93% humidity. But even at the 93% humidity, it was still calm with no wind. And from what I was told is they were classifying the damages to my car as being an act of God. However, an act of God is natural causes such as by a flood, earthquake, or some other type of natural disaster, unless the course of events could have been prevented. Being how they have at least 2 other reports about the case, one that was just verbal and one that was by way of they had to come out and physically do something else, then I think that rules in the fact that they had prior enough knowledge that they should have been doing something to address them trees. And as I also stated in the emails, which I didn't bring anything else for, but that they needed to update the policy because it's going to not just affect me, but it'll affect other people to where, you know, you're not looking at exclusively, oh, did that one tree get reported? It should be a thing where they're going in a perimeter or so much of a, because if you're already on the block, why wouldn't you check the other trees that are right there next to it? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense logically to me. So, I mean, that's pretty much where I'm at and what I've got. I don't know what else to say.
Roy, yes, do you have a question?
Yes. What's the total amount of your claim?
$34,1865, I believe, was what it was, because the car is totaled. It did the main frame damage to the car, and it's a 2006 Altima.
Did your insurance pay anything?
No, because I don't carry full coverage. Because who predicts that you're gonna have a tree fall on your car? I'm almost 50 years old and I've never had an issue before, you know?
Ms. Otten, could you, when they removed the tree and your follow-up, did they tell you what caused the tree to fall down, or?
No, the police officer that come to the door, to my daughter's door and knocked and found me, he was really shocked, because I guess would be the best word for it, because it was so dead calm outside. There was nothing, no wind, no rain, no snow, nothing going on. And he said it didn't make any logical sense to him that the tree would fall. Has anything else fell from there since? I don't know. But the city he called the city, and the city did come remove it off the car because it was actually such a big branch that it actually was touching both cars, the one that was in front and the one that was in back. Obviously, the front one was that got the majority of the damage, but it had touched the car that was clear on the other side of the street as well.
Okay. Any other questions? James?
Thank you for coming in. I mean, it seems like you're really well prepared and brought a lot of information. I just want to make sure that I understand correctly. So there's 2 trees, right? And then there was a report made in 2018 about 1 tree, and it was a tree.
But I don't know which one of the trees was 2018. The lady at the city attorney's office is the one that informed me of the report from 2018. And she just said that was a tree obstructing. Then I know that the second report, which was from Manister, AKA George Kolowski, and he and his wife said that that report would have been 6 to 7 months prior to when the tree fell on my car. So that would have put it back in January or February, not clear back to October the year prior.
So what you were aware of was that the tree had been reported to the city, just not sure which tree was reported?
The one from October, yes.
Okay.
She did not clarify which one was. She did say that she clarified with Mr. Kolowski that the one he reported about the fence damage from January or February was the actual adjacent tree.
Okay.
But the report that she has from the obstruction, she didn't clarify which tree that was.
Thank you.
Okay. Jeff, could we have you come up?
Jeff Kirkpatrick, City Attorney.
Okay. Could you provide us with what your records show?
Sure. There has been a fair amount of activity on this block. We've got 5 street trees there, and forestry has been out in 2001, 2002, 2010, 2012, 2013, 14, 18, and 19 to either prune the trees or to pick up down branches. The reason why we recommend a denial of the claim in this case is because we didn't have prior knowledge that there was a defect with the tree. And in fact, I would suggest to you that there was no visible defect with the tree. When you look at the picture, and it's not a very good picture, but what it does show when it comes up, there we go, is that it was a live branch. So it wasn't a matter, even if we would have inspected the tree the day before, we would have said, oh, there's a dead branch there, we need to take it down. This was a live branch, as you can see, with leaves attached to it. And so even if the forestry division had been on that street the day before it came down, they would have looked at the tree and said, that's a healthy tree. There's no reason to necessarily prune that branch. And in fact, it remains a healthy tree. And that's why it's still there today. But unfortunately, as sometimes happens, a branch on a healthy tree just fell down, not even with the storm involved, and crushed everything beneath it. Our policy, our liability is if we know about a defect with the tree and we don't respond within a reasonable period of time, then we're negligent and we would pay that claim. When we don't know about a defect, or in this case where a defect was not visible to anyone, then we recommend denial of the claim.
So it seems like on that block there was a lot of tree trimming going on, but do your records indicate that this tree got trimmed or the other tree that was indicated?
No, what our records indicate is there was no complaint specifically about this tree, but that there was some activity on that block where we were out pruning trees prior to the.
So could you fill us in on October 2018, there was a call for one of the trees there stating for a site obstruction, and then it seems like another gentleman, neighbor, called about one of the trees on January of
There was a
2019.
different tree that was blocking, I think, the visibility to the street sign. So forestry came out and trimmed it back so you could see the street sign. And then the neighboring tree, which was an entirely separate tree, dropped a branch on the neighbor's fence. And he called and informed us of that. But again, it was not, it was a healthy tree. So even after forestry came out and looked at his tree, separate tree from what Ms. Ottens is making the claim about, we left the tree up because it was a healthy tree.
So just to clarify, even if you had went out the day before, it still would have been, nothing would have happened because it would have been a healthy tree.
Right, with foliage on it late in the season, and there's no reason to think there's any particular defect.
And I think you mentioned this, and I kind of missed it, but you said y'all had been out there the 10th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 18th, and 19th. Have any of the other?
2000. These are different years. So,
Okay.
I mean, some blocks, frankly, we don't get to very often because we have no regular schedule of maintenance. But this particular street, we were on there a fairly regular basis, including the year before that. And so you go down, and if there's any dead branches, any pruning that needs to be done, or trimming in some cases to make sure that you can see street signs, forestry does that.
If the crews are out and about, and let's say they are working on a tree, and then they see a tree next to it that needs to have some work done, do they approach anyone about getting that resolved, or do they kind of ignore it? You know what I mean? So if they're out working on one tree, see another tree needs to be worked on, do they make note of that, or do they?
They'll either make note of it or trim it at the time. Yeah. And of course, it's a matter of if it's a very small branch, it might not rise to the importance of trimming it. But if you've got a significant branch that's clearly dead or dying, then they're going to prune it back.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Yes, ma'am. You may do a rebuttal.
Okay, he showed you a picture from the other angle, from the second car forward instead of backwards, which is opposing from what I did. But what I wanted to state was that the part that he didn't clear, or that I forgot and he didn't clarify, was that when Mr. Kowalski, who is not just the neighbor, it's the property owner, had called about the tree that fell on his fence, he asked to have the trees removed from the property, which, so that it didn't cause further damage to his property, meaning the fence, etc. Because he didn't, I guess, wasn't going to argue with them or something, I don't know. But he told me that he had asked for the trees to be removed and that they didn't remove them, they didn't do anything with them near as he could tell, except for take the tree off of his fence, as well as they did with my car.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So what you're saying is that someone had already asked the trees to be removed, and then the city, can I ask Jeff a question? Is that
Sure,
appropriate?
Jeff can come back to.
If a neighbor requests a tree to be removed, does the city usually remove those trees?
Typically, the city's policy is we do not remove healthy trees. Now, we're in a bit of a different cycle now, and in fact, the tree that we're talking about is an ash tree. And so there might be a little bit different approach to that. But this was a healthy tree that Mr. Kalausi, or trees that he asked to be removed, and forestry doesn't tend to remove healthy trees. There wasn't a defect that they could see if you didn't have the trunk splitting or a bunch of dead leaders on it. Even if someone requests a tree to be removed, forestry does not typically remove healthy trees.
Okay, thanks.
And that's what happened in this case. You had a branch fell down, forestry came out, these are healthy trees, and they did not remove them, and still have not.
Okay, thank you. And then, Ms. Otta, is your car still running, or I know it
runs, but you can't drive it anywhere.
Because
the windows have fallen and the roof is caved in, and I mean, it's not safe. It was actually the car I had that my son drove, and so he's been totally without a car the whole time.
And then this house, from your email, said that this was in front of your mother's house?
My daughter's.
In front of your daughter's house, okay.
It's actually, okay, so the way the property sits is she's the second house in from the corner. The corner house is owned, not just rented or whatever, it's owned by Mr. Kowalski. And where the car was parked was on 32nd, which him being a corner lot, it would have been technically parallel to his house. And that's how we got back to the backyard fence, is because my cars were parked from the alleyway going forward towards T Street, which is what my daughter actually lives on, is T Street. And quite frankly, like I said in the earlier statement, that that they need to review their policy. They need to review their policy further, even because like my mom was buying a property on Alpha Street, and when she was buying a property on Alpha Street, they come by, planted a tree, hung a bag to it with a sign that said, a sticker on the side of it that said, "Here, you got to water this all the time." Why didn't they have to then get, the city, why don't they have to get some kind of agreement with the homeowners before putting them trees there? I know that's not particularly the case, or sort of the same in this case, because them trees are probably 50 to 100 years old. I mean, you can tell by how much girth is at the bottom of the tree. I'm from Nebraska City, Tree City. So, but they, if they've been out there 2 or 3 times already, they've had down branches, the owner asked to have it removed, they refuse to remove it. How does that make them non-liable? I don't understand.
Anything else you want to, I mean, I don't mean to take, but that's all the questions I have.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Is there someone else that wants to testify on this claim? Otherwise, we'll go on to another one. Okay, ma'am, you may testify.
Good afternoon, Council. Jackie Wood, and it's 2510 Northwest 52nd Street, Lincoln, Nebraska. And I had also filed a tort claim against the city for damage to my vehicle. This was done September 14th, and it involved the striping paint trucks. And it was dark when I went, and I was taking my nephew to work to Kawasaki, so I was on the back roads of Air Park behind the airport, and there was no indication going that anything was going on, with painting. There was no warnings, no trucks that I saw. When I came back from dropping him off, just in that few minutes, and I proceeded, and I was going back the same way that I started, and then I rounded. It's a stretch, so you're on a straight, and then you round a corner, you go around, and they were on this part of the corner, so I couldn't see them coming down the road, and there was no warning. Then I saw the flashing lights, and not knowing even at that point what it was until I got closer, just because they were piggybacking each other, which I didn't understand. They were traveling together, but there was no warning approaching them. They were literally like they were touching bumper to bumper almost. And to me that seemed a little silly, but still, at that time I thought that I was on the line, but it wasn't the only people that was out there on the road either, and so you're sharing the road. I had just gotten my vehicle. I leased it 6 weeks before that, so it was brand new. And never had a brand new vehicle, and so I was, disappointed. I tried immediately when I saw it after I had gotten home, which was a couple hours, but it happened to be outside, and I saw it, and so I immediately was trying to take action of how to remove it. And it was already at that point too late with the places I had gone. So I had no choice but to go to a professional. And I had gotten some quotes. And I have all that information, and I sent it both because I wasn't sure who the road belonged to, because there's like 3 different sections out there. And so I first did the claim to the state, and it was denied. So then they said that it should probably go to the city with what they saw. And so I did, and they denied it as well. They did say that they were out there according to the GPS. But, you know, like I said, I've got pictures of some of the damage. And that would be down at the base and up to the side of the door. And this is all on the passenger side.
Are those flecks of white or yellow?
It's the white paint for the outside of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And from my understanding, they say it takes 3 minutes to dry. And so with that being said, too, I would like to think that there would be a trail vehicle or something, you know, instead of going together, that gives you no warning. And there's also plexiglass in this. That's why it becomes, you know, so hard to remove without scratching and taking your paint. And not that it would have made a big difference to me if it would have been an owned vehicle, but being leased, I definitely had to, the longer I would have left it on, the worse it would have been. So it would have just, they said it would have just started little micro scratches in your paint. So, and it was in the wheel wells. So being that fresh, you know, even if I did cross that or go on it a split second, would have done everything that was on here. So I proceeded to get 3 quotes, and I did take the lesser of all 3, and they were also the ones that I felt, you know, oh, whoops, that would have had the most experience removing it.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Should be a monitor right in front of you, up, just look there.
Oh,
Because we can't see the amount.
gotcha.
And
So
could you,
that's the one that I did go with. The others were, I can show you, they were 500 some, and the other one was 700 and some.
and this quote is for?
This is what I did, I paid for it out of my pocket, and it was to remove all of that paint.
And, but I can't see the numbers. What,
Oh,
what's-
374.50?
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to see the other 2 that were, I didn't go with?
No.
Okay. Let me see. And I do have, I'm not sure which way this is going to be best. We'll try it this way first. This is a map of the route that I was on, and I highlighted according to, you know, on the way out to take him to work, and then on the way back, and where the vehicle was located. And like I said, just in that quick of a time frame, so I had no idea, or I would have taken another route, I can guarantee. But, and I do have lane assist on there too, and it didn't, you know, on my vehicle, I have the lane assist that keeps you from, and I think that's all I have on here, the state.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Ms. Wood, thank you for coming this afternoon.
Certainly.
Can you show us on the map, because you said you were coming around a corner, could you show us where you were when you passed the vehicles that were painting?
I didn't, I came up on them,
Came
so
up
they
on
were
them,
right
okay.
here. So they were, and I just had dropped my nephew off here at work, came down this road. So I turned onto here, so there's all this straightway, and I had no idea, I couldn't see anything. I didn't see him until I came completely around this corner, was on this straightaway. So this had already been done, but there was no warning, and there was no way I could have seen them until I came around that corner. So at that point, it had already happened.
Oh, I see. And I see the asterisks on the.
Yeah, and seeing this on the pink, that was the way I had just taken to go and drop him off at work. So I ran into nobody that way either. So there was just in literally 5-10 minutes, whatever it took to drop him off at Kawasaki and get back on. And it was still dark outside that morning, and I know it was kind of sprinkling, I remember, and so it was just, it was a shock, and it was an unexpected expense that, you know.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So, Ms. Wood, thank you.
Yes.
Were you done, Councilwoman Washington? Thank you for being here,
Sure.
and we certainly appreciate that. So you said it was dark. Remind us, what time of day was it when you were taking your nephew to work? I was just curious.
Approximately 6:40 on a Saturday morning.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you've had your car repaired, so it's looking good again, I hope, okay? And the amount of $374.50.
Correct.
All right, okay.
Correct.
So, and you don't have to answer this as well, but I know that my deductible would not cover that, so you probably have, I know,
No.
that's another issue someday, right? But, so have you talked or filed an insurance claim at all, just to?
With what the deductible would have been, that would have cost me more
Right.
than what
Okay.
this costs.
Okay.
And so I was trying to keep it as,
Sure.
like, yeah, it doesn't matter to
Simple.
me whose pocket it comes out of, you know, I still,
You want
I'm
it.
not out to get.
I
mean,
understand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
no, I get it. And when you lease, it's a whole different
yes, it is.
story, isn't it? So, okay. Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jeff, could you come up and ask or answer a few questions? I guess I'm a little perplexed why there was paint on the car unless you, because they only paint like the left side and the right side.
Right, this actually, we went out and looked, you can see on the road where she drove on the line, and it was not the middle line, it was a line on the outside of the road, where's what she drove on. And so, painting procedure, and we paint this particular road 1 to 2 times a year because it fades. And you're particularly, I think, appreciative of having lines on roads this time of year when you start getting a little snow on top or some slush. It's difficult to stay within the lanes. So it's an important safety feature. It's important for us to renew those lines frequently enough so they're visible. And what we do, and there's a lot of roads, a lot of streets to cover in the city, what we do in order to do it efficiently and safely is you have 2 vehicles. You've got the painting vehicle, and then you have a chase vehicle, and they try to maintain 200 to 300 feet between those 2 vehicles. Both of them have flashing lights and signage saying wet paint, beware. And so you've got the striping vehicle, you've got the chase vehicle behind. The paint is specially formulated depending upon atmospheric conditions, the humidity, and so on, but it's supposed to be essentially dry within 3 to 5 minutes after it's put on. And it's going to depend upon the time of the day and the humidity and so on, but that's the goal, is to have it dry within about 5 minutes. We don't close streets to paint them because of the amount of mileage we need to cover in an efficient period of time. And if you can imagine putting up signs, closing a couple of blocks, striping it, going back and picking up those signs and opening the street back up again, you're talking about maybe 3 times the manpower of what we use. With using the paint that we do and the system we do, we can do it fairly efficiently and fairly affordably. The only danger is when people, and this happens occasionally, and we see occasional claims, when people drive on the wet paint in that window, that 3 to 5 minutes before the paint is dry, but they have to drive on the paint, which means they're not in the lane where they're supposed to be driving. They're driving on or over the lines on either side of the lane they're supposed to be driving between. The reason why we're recommending denial of this particular claim, as we will other claims when you've got a solid white line, is it's against state law to drive on or over those solid lines. That's what they're there for. You're supposed to, in order to drive safely, you're supposed to stay between those lanes. Now, we all, some of us, maybe more frequently than others, wander sometimes when we're driving down the street or down the highway. And usually we correct in time, we don't cause an accident, but we're supposed to stay between the lines. That's what they're there for. And when you drive over the line and it happens to be wet paint, then you get paint on the cars, which is unfortunate. We feel bad for her, but that's why we're recommending denial, is she was driving over the line. And if she hadn't been driving on the line, then the wet paint wouldn't have flown up. The only way to keep this from happening would be to close all the streets when we're painting those, and you need to think in terms of what kind of outlay that would be for taxpayers if we were to do that kind of procedure.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Jeff?
Thank you.
Did you want a rebuttal?
So I can understand and appreciate what he's saying, and I'm sure I do play a part in fault. Not saying I don't, and I can't guarantee that I went or did not. I do have the lane assist on, so even if I did, it would have, bumped you back over. Wasn't the only person on the road. So then you're also going with who's coming at you as to what you can do. So I can't say right now if that happened at the time or not. I wasn't looking at it at that moment. You go according to what you've got going on at that time. But my other thing would be, I found it interesting, he said they went out and looked and saw where I drove over this. But I didn't even turn this claim in right away. And so how can you say I was the only one that was my tire tracks? Because I didn't even find any paint on my tires. It was all underneath, but I'm just saying with that, how do I know that was my mark, my tires that left that? Because there were still people coming and going. I wasn't the only person that dropped somebody off at work that morning. So, I think there's not total proof there either as well. But, like I said, I'm not going to say I'm not at fault. Obviously, I must have crossed over at some point, but I wasn't just driving down that line. So, that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming down. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on this claim? Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on another claim against the city? Okay, seeing none, let's go on to the next item.
All right, I'll call 5C, approving a consultant agreement between the city and Walker Parking Consultants Engineers, Inc. to provide functional design and parking consulting services related to the parking facility at the intersection of N Street and Pinnacle Bank Arena Drive for a sum not to exceed $94,500. I will note for the record that we will be requesting action be delayed on this until the 27th.
Dan Marvin, Director of Urban Development. What you have before you is a typical construction contract with Walker. They do excellent work. They help determine ingress and egress out of our parking garages on the design phase, ingress and egress for people as well, signage within the building. And this is a contract that if you would approve it, would go towards the construction of a parking garage over on Pinnacle Arena Drive and N Street. And I understand it's going to be delayed pending approval of other items that you have before you today. Do you have any questions?
Richard?
Yes, thank you. So will this consultant be our architect for the parking garage?
No, I do not believe so. Wayne's here, but I think I can speak out of turn here. It's Davis Design that's likely to be the architect for this project. Well, we'll have Wayne come up and answer that question for you.
Good afternoon, Wayne Mixdorf, Parking Manager for the city. The Walker Parking Consultants are for functional design only for the garage. Davis Design was selected through competitive bidding process to be the architect for this particular project. Their contract has not been finalized yet and will not be brought before you for another couple of weeks.
So Davis Design didn't have the expertise to do this? And we needed to go with a separate consultant?
It was primarily a timing issue. As we were working our way through the necessary information to generate the redevelopment agreement, we found it necessary to begin working with Walker Parking for the functional design of the garage as it relates to the rest of the project. And so this was merely a continuation of that work. Davis Design and Walker Parking Consultants have worked together before and shouldn't have any difficulty working together in this case.
From my experience I've only done 3 garages. This is exactly the same way we did it before.
Okay.
On red, green, and blue. All had a design contract with Walker to help on the efficiency, ingress and egress elements on that. And then we had an architect do the architectural design, the DD drawings and the rest of the work.
Because this is what, our 5th garage?
This will be the 4th garage in the West Haymarket. This one will be a city garage, however.
Okay.
So it'd be a little bit different than the JPA.
And then we've got the one that's attached to the arena too. So
Yeah, we have the one attached to the arena also.
I don't know how you count it. That's, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Benny, did you have a question? No?
About the Lumberworks garage, we'll talk about that some other day.
So what color will this garage be designated then?
It is up in the air. And we're open to suggestions, but purple and gold are the 2 colors that are
Not on
currently
the same
leading.
garage.
Oh, yes.
I want
Okay, Roy, did you have a question or suggestion?
Purple and gold, yeah.
My high
Purple and
school
gold.
colors.
Both.
Okay. Sounds very regal. Okay. I don't know.
Why not
All right, are
kind
there
of a lime
any
green look to
other
it?
substantive questions to be asked? All right, since seeing none, is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item? Okay, let's go on. And I believe we have a motion, don't we have to make,
We'll
Teresa?
do that during the voting session.
Okey-doke, we can do it then. All right.
Next would be item 5D, appeal of John Harrod of the Planning Commission's approval of special permit 19054 to allow for the expansion of a non-conforming veterinary use in the R3 residential district and associated parking waiver on property generally located at 2400 West Van Dorn Street. We did receive notice from Mr. Harrod that he is withdrawing his appeal. But if anybody wanted to come forward and speak to this item, they sure can.
Is there anyone that would like to testify? Okay, I think
All
we
right.
can go on to the voting
Back to
session.
vote. All right, we'll start with item 5A, a resolution supporting and providing funding for the City-County Complete Count Committee related to the 2020 United States Census, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, introduced by Shob, seconded by
Everybody.
lots of people.
I
I'll give
heard
it to
Christensen first.
Christensen, there we go. Is there any further discussion? Please call the roll. Oh, yes.
What
Mr.
type of
Christensen.
thing is this? This is a good thing.
Terrific. Thank you all very much. Let's call the roll.
Shob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Next is item 5B, the report of claims against the city, introduced by McGinnis.
So moved.
Second.
I would like to make a motion to remove Michelle Otten's denial from the claims.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion on that?
One of the reasons why I think that we should consider removing her denial is the fact that there's been a lot of work out there, the fact that it is an ash tree, and the fact that it seems unusual that a relatively healthy tree would just fall down out of nowhere, causing significant damage to Ms. Auden's car. So I think that there's maybe something more there, and the fact that it's an ash tree was kind of the thing that pushed me over the edge a little bit.
So you want to remove her claim for further consideration or move it to the approved?
Move it to approved.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Tammy, are you okay with that then?
Yes, I will still second that. Thank you, Teresa. I want to move on the next claim, but I know we have to vote on this one
Yes,
first.
we have to vote on this one first.
The amendment to move it to the approved.
Yes.
Councilman Bowers, I understand why you would put forth this proposal. I think for exactly the same reason, because it is an ash tree, I'm concerned that we will be looking at lots of claims. It would set a precedent because we are getting ready, we're trying to respond to the emerald ash borer, and I worry that by accepting this claim, that we will make ourselves open to accepting many, many other claims for this tree species.
And I likewise have some concerns and reservations because we rely on our arborists to tell us, is this a healthy tree? And for all purposes, the branch that came down had green leaves, and it means it's living, it's thriving, but there's no reason why a tree should be dropping its branches like that. So it's so difficult to even ascertain if this tree is unhealthy, but our arborists tell us it's a healthy tree, so there's no reason that this tree needs to be removed at this time. So I will not support the motion, because I do agree with Councilwoman Washington that it could set a terrible precedence for further claims when the only way we have to determine is the testimony of the arborists. Any further discussion? Please call the roll on the amendment.
No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ben.
I'd like clarification on what a yes and what a no vote is.
This would be to move the claim from denied to approved.
A yes vote would do that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Schob?
No.
Ward?
Yes.
Washington?
No.
Bowers?
Yes.
Christensen?
No.
McGinnis?
No.
Raybold?
No.
Motion lost 2-5.
Okay, is there any other motions to amend?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. If I may, I would move, I wanted to just talk just one more moment about Ms. Wood's claim. And it gave me pause. I think she may have something when we don't know for certain that it was her car that caused was her tire track in the paint line. I think she made a good case for herself and the paint situation with her leased vehicle. So I would move that we approve her claim
I'll second that.
in the amount of, if I may, $374.50. If that's all right with you, Councilman Bowers, to
Yes.
second it. Thank you.
Is there
Yes.
any other discussion on that? Okay, please call the roll on this amendment.
Schob?
No.
Ward?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Christensen?
No.
McGinnis?
No.
Raybold?
No.
Motion lost 3-4.
Okay, now on the claims as
entire
presented.
list?
Yes, the entire list. Thank you. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schob?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 5C is the consultant agreement with Walker Parking. I would entertain a motion to delay action to January 27th.
So moved.
Nope.
Second.
Okay, so I'm going to give that one to Christensen again, and
Well, we had agreed beforehand that I would do
and,
that.
and seconded by Washington to delay this, the vote on this. And are we going to keep public hearing open as well, Teresa?
No.
This is just action only.
Just action only to January 27th. Please call the roll.
Schob?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Bowers? Christensen?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Next is item 5D, the appeal of John Herod of Special Permit 19054.
I moved this be withdrawn.
Second.
Moved by Christensen to withdraw, seconded by McGinnis. Any discussion? Okay, please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Next then, our public hearing ordinances second reading. Item 6A is amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter M by creating the classification of Public Health Epidemiology Supervisor.
Good afternoon, Council. Doug McDaniel, Human Resources. This is a new classification developed at the request of the Health Department, expanding the supervisory roles in the epidemiology area. Currently, all of this work is being overseen by a division head. It's grown pretty significantly, so we need another level management in there to take off some of the workload. So it creates a new classification. There's no added FTEs.
Just one thing I want to throw in there. This is for Raju, who really takes the lead in doing the Place Matters data and provides all the wonderful information that tells us about our health outcomes throughout the city. So Raju's great at his job and very deserving.
And do we have other epidemiologists to assist?
We do.
Okay.
We do. Yes.
That's great. Any other questions? Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on this item? Okay, thank you, Mr. McDaniel.
Is item 6B, amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter M by changing the title from Information and Fiscal Services Manager to Public Health Informatics and Planning Manager.
Again, as the ordinance title states, we have changed the title and fairly extensive revisions of the class description, removing some of the fiscal duties from this division head, which will eventually, the fiscal duties will report directly to the director. Currently, it will remain with the division head in the interim role, but it does update the class description fairly extensively, keeps it in the same pay range, there's no fiscal impact.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. McDaniel? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on this item? Okay, let's move on.
All right, next is item 6C, Annexation 19009, annexing approximately 0.29 acres of right-of-way for a bridge on Fletcher Avenue east of North 84th Street, generally located at North 84th and Fletcher Avenue.
Good afternoon, David Carey, Director of the Planning Department. Before you today to recommend approval of this annexation of the bridge that is on Fletcher Avenue, just east of 84th Street, North 84th Street. You'll see on the map here. This is an item that came up for discussion in recent months in relation to some other items that were discussing whether or not to annex a bridge with some other urban development city annexations that came before you. This item was pointed out as being a split annexation. In other words, that when this was annexed in 2009, it had about half of the bridge brought in. It was following the property line that was following the creek bed, and that has just kind of continued that line across the bridge. It is not our common practice to do this. We identified this as something that should be remedied, and we are in support of that. This was before the Planning Commission and did receive unanimous support from the Planning Commission back on December 18th. One of the main things that this will provide is clarity on maintenance responsibilities that would become the city's responsibility. That is the main purpose behind this at this point in time. So I am certainly happy to answer any questions you may have on this.
Are there any questions for Mr. Carey?
I have no questions, but I do have a comment, and my comment is hear, hear. Thank you. I'm glad it's been resolved.
Thank you.
Terrific. I see we have our county engineer here. Ms. Dingman, do you have something to present or comments?
I would just like to thank the council for taking action on this. Maintaining this bridge has obviously been very difficult. Maintenance that needed to be done. I've been trying to negotiate with the city actually for a number of years, in particular since the 2015 flood. This is a 1979 slab bridge, and so it does have, like the other bridge, some clear and dramatic maintenance concerns, as do many of our county bridges.
Are there any questions for our county engineer? Okay, thank you very much for coming down.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on this item? Okay, seeing none, we can move on.
All right, I'll call item 6D, change of zone 19029, application of Agate LLC for a change from AG Agricultural to AGR Agricultural Residential on property generally located at the intersection of Harold Road and Bluff Road.
Good afternoon, David Carey, Director of the Planning Department, here before you just to let you know that this was a requirement, a condition of approval, I should say, of use permit 19008. That is the Project Agate approval that did occur and is in place now. And that is to, upon approval, to move forward with a recommendation and an application to do this change of zone from AG to AGR. And the main purpose of this is that the Agate project brought in as much land as possible as part of that, and then there was a change of zone to industrial zoning on the outlot. Obviously, that is not an outlot that is for residential purposes anymore. The AG zoning only allows for certain density, and with the existing 4 lots in that CUP, in order to have full acknowledgement of the allowance for those 4 lots, it needs the AGR zoning, which allows for higher density. You don't have to do this in the sense of they could be a condition of non-conforming. They could be out there and stay that way, but this is a cleaner way to do this, and it is something that we recommend approval on, and did get approval from the Planning Commission. So with that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Carey? Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on this item? Seeing none, we shall move on.
All right, I'll call items 6E through G together. These are 3 items related to the Canopy Park project on property generally located at the northwest corner of South Canopy Street and N Street. We have amendment number 1 to the redevelopment agreement, amending the fiscal year 1920 CIP to authorize and appropriate an increase in TIF funds of $653,656 for a total of $7,089,305 in TIF funds, and authorizing an amendment to the bond ordinance to allow for the issuance of tax allocation bonds for the redevelopment project.
Good afternoon, Dan Marvin, Urban Development. What you have before you today is an amendment number 1 for a project that was previously approved in May of 2019. There have been some changes which I can detail. I don't know if the Elmo's going to pick up here, give the people, but basically the location of this is along N Street between Pinnacle Arena Drive here and Canopy Street. The parking garage that we were speaking about earlier would be, well, by gosh, it is purple.
Purple.
It's a purple garage. And then the red building is the apartment complex. So this project was going to come forward. It was a there were a number of people that were involved with the approval of this. West Haymarket Joint Public Agency owned the property. They're in the approval chain. City of Lincoln is a partner, obviously, with the parking garage. LHDC was going to provide the affordable housing units. They manage property in Haymarket, so this would be adjacent to areas that they currently operate. And then Speedway and Nelnet were going to accommodate the market rate apartment complex. There's a proposed new park across the street. What you'll see here in this area right here is kind of a key fixture. It's at the end point for Canopy Street. So it's a high amenity, a park that we're trying to develop over there. This agreement does provide funds towards that end. This agreement also provides $1 million towards the construction of the parking garage as well. This agreement builds 254 apartments, of which 41 of them are affordable housing units, and the definition of affordable housing in this particular case is that the units would be marketed to people who are at 60% of area median income or below, and they would be able to get in there where their cost burden for rent and utilities, and the definition we're using there is rent plus the district energy cost, the utility end of it, would be at 30%, would be their cost burden. And what has happened is the LHDC component that was going to manage that end of it could not move forward on it for a variety of different reasons. And what Speedway and Nelnet has stepped into their shoes to manage this project going forward, and they'll manage it as just one unit. 41 units could float to any part of the building, and they would manage this for the next 15 years as affordable on the 41 units that are there. The key things that I think, it hooks into the district energy, so this is a huge new consumer of electricity, or not electricity, but heating and cooling from that plant. That plant was designed to spread costs, so the more people we add onto that plant, the more our costs get spread, the cheaper it is for everybody within that development, including the West Market Joint Public Agency, which has got the financing component of this. It causes savings across the board for all the people that tap into that. There's a large amount of streetscape development on this. That hasn't changed. But the only thing that really has changed from the TIF component that you have before you is that the TIF calculation did go up, and that was shared proportionally. So the amount that goes over to Block 5 to develop out that park went up on a proportional allocation to the rest of the development. I'm happy to entertain any questions. The developer's here. I know Mr. Sechrist is here as well, and I think he would like a moment of your time as well.
Go ahead.
Well, no, you go ahead.
I was going to ask, this amendment number 1, was it a complete change from the other one, or is there still parts of the original agreement effective after we do amendment 1? Maybe that's the secret of the question.
Well, that you can ask Kent. We'll show the picture of the building. The agreement changed a lot with word replacement because the number of parties involved went down. There weren't too many significant changes other than the TIF calculation. The number of years that this is going to be operated as affordable did shrink. It shrunk from 30 years to 15 years. The amount of public money into the project in terms of assistance through our department shrunk as well. LHDC was going to get a loan forgiveness. We didn't have a loan forgiveness tool that we could give to this project, so the loan forgiveness went away, and the period shrunk to 15 years from 30.
I was just trying to read the redevelopment agreement. It's 206 pages. The amendment is 206 pages.
Well, a lot of it is kind of a
it's not a red line.
Tim can get up here to speak to that, but it's a lot of rewording the original agreement.
Okay.
Too.
Richard, or Roy,
Yeah.
sorry.
Am I correct in my understanding that this also represents an increase in the total number of dwelling units?
Yes. So the total number went from 235 units to 254.
Is this the main reason why there's an increase in the TIF?
Yes, I would imagine that there's that, and that there's been a change, I can imagine, in interest rates in the last year as well, too.
I have a question about the shortened time period from 30 years to 15 years of affordable housing. What happens, like, on the ground with the residents who are in the affordable housing units at 14 and a half years or 14 and 3/4 years?
Well, as we spoke earlier, I think that we're breaking new ground in a lot of what we're doing here.
Right.
And the public is certainly clamoring that we provide more options for affordable housing. So I can imagine as we close out that, any of the restrictions that come with TIF would go away, and generally, these units would lease up on 1 year, I would imagine, on 1 year lease term. So as you get closer to that, just as any other operator of an apartment, as you get closer to the end of that, you would inform your patrons, your clients, what the new annual rate's going to be, and that there would be a process of notification of what the new rate would be. Just as there would be a change, the rate that will be charged for an affordable housing is a calculated rate that will change over the next 15 years,
Right.
because AMI changes every year as well. So using that calculus, you would inform a person what the new rate would be, and it would be, I can imagine, would be operated in the same way. The rate jump would be considerably different, though. In this agreement, as long as we're talking about that, there was some discussion about what happens if somebody goes to 65% of AMI, they go in there. So if that patron does earn more money, there's an upper lid on this of 80% of AMI before they become a market rate apartment. So there's a cushion in between there as well during that period.
Thank you.
And Dan, did you say that this apartment complex will be using DEC for the heating and cooling?
Correct.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, and Mr. Seacrest is coming up.
Good afternoon. My name's Kent Seacrest. I'm representing Canopy Park LLC and the West Haymarket Holding Company, whose principals include Nelnet and Speedway Properties. With me today for questioning, if you have questions, Terry Himes with Nelnet's Chief Operating Officer, Clay Smith, the General Partner for Speedway Properties, Adam Criswell, Operation Manager for Speedway Properties, and Todd Hessen, who is with Encompass, the architectural team that has helped us along this way. First of all, we want to express our appreciation towards Lincoln Haymarket Development Corporation. While they are not a partner, they tried hard, and we appreciated them engaging with us to try to provide affordable housing, because they have a good track record and are quality people. But it was not in their cards to make this project go forward. So once again, once it became apparent that West Haymarket Housing Development Corporation couldn't proceed, Nelnet and Speedway made a big commitment to take on 41 affordable housing units, to keep affordable housing as part of the project. And I think this is an important fact in front of you. Affordable housing, as you know, has been a key objective for many of you, in fact, probably all of you, because you've said it, you've had subcommittees, you've campaigned, and it's also important to the mayor, and it's just important to the community as we see wages maybe not keeping up with housing costs in our community. So it's a problem. So as a result, I'm very appreciative of my clients' willingness to step up and do this. But they did it in a very positive way, I felt. There's no longer going to be one building or one floor that will be affordable. They're decided that they're going to have these be based on just what's available at the time. So they will have, there isn't a first and a second class quality finish to this, which is really very important, and high quality will be part of the nature. So you go down a hallway, you won't know this is affordable or this is a market rate unit, which I think is very cool. All the amenities because it's all three buildings, are going to be open to all tenants equally. So again, full amenities, full feature, full service opportunities are being offered here. And we did increase the number of units, which does increase the opportunity for TIF, but we also felt that more density helped make the cash flow, because again, we're a for-profit entity trying to do affordable housing, and that's not a normal mix in this community. People that have done affordable housing in the past have been nonprofits. So this has been a new model, and it took a while. But one of the reasons we're able to do it, we feel, is the economies of scale. We were going to have, with our old partner, 2 contractors on site, 3 buildings. Now we're going to have 1 contractor with 3 buildings, and we think this will be a big advantage along the way. The additional TIF has helped make the project go forward. But there still is a considerable more risk on Nelnet and Speedway's part. And to their credit, they're acknowledging that this has become more of a community aspect project than a merely profitable project. And they're to be commended for this, in my opinion. And I want to thank the staff, because it took a long time to put it, it took a short time to put it together the first time because of our pressure. But this time it took a while to figure out how to readjust and make the new model work. And urban development, Dan Marvin, Dallas McGee, Hallie Sam really stepped up and worked hard. So did Tim C. from Law, and planning, Stacy Hagman, were very helpful. But again, I do want to thank our prior partner, Lincoln Haymarket Development Corporation, Kaylin Eckert and Larry Small and David Schmidt and Darrell Hornam and others that really tried hard, but it wasn't for them to go forward with. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any of your questions.
Any questions? Right.
I don't have a question, I have a comment. Thank you very much to Nelnet and Speedway for your commitment to affordable housing in our community. I think we all acknowledge this wouldn't happen without you, and appreciate the risk you take and the commitment you have to our city.
Okay.
Thank you so
very
much.
Should we all say ditto?
Yeah.
Ditto.
This is a good
Ditto.
thing.
Okay.
Ditto.
Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item?
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs of Lincoln Government. This is a feel-good resolution, and while it's going to help, or it sets up help for low-income ownership, there are a lot of caveats to it. Number one, the JPA will be attacking a surcharge on tenants' electric bills who are renting in this area. So while you're going to give them an amount of lowering their possible bills, they will have an increased electric bill unless the JPA wants to do away with that, which there is no plan to do that, and they haven't in the past. The intent of the TIF is for infrastructure. It is not for enhancements, which are built into this project. And we have talked before to the previous council about the legislature recognizing that the TIF is being abused in Lincoln, Nebraska, as well as in Omaha. Another one is that there are pollutants in the soil. PCBs remain, and though there's a plan to remediate, which is approved by the Nebraska Department of Energy and Environment, no one can assure that some human damage might not be done over a period of time when people live in this area. The city has more liability from long-term living in this area, and we don't think that this is appropriate thinking by the city council to build in this area. The U.S. Geological Survey has stated that when a diesel plume is discovered beneath the surface of the soil, it is very difficult to get rid of it because it moves around and people aren't even aware it's there until it starts causing trouble. And it can hide and pop up later. We are against using a turn-back tax to provide some of the financing on this. The arena is not fully paid for, and there will be a deficit in 2023, 24, 25, and several other years down the road. This bond needs to be repaid before money is taken from the JPA for other projects. Therefore, we are against this as it is written. We suggest that it goes back to the drawing board and that these caveats be included in consideration for the situation. And if Canopy Park LLC and the Lincoln Holding Development want to build low-income housing, that they need to look at another area for this where these caveats are not included.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item? Okay, seeing none, we can go on.
That concludes our public hearing portion. We can move into the voting session. Ordinance's third reading. Item 7A is text amendment 19008, application of H&H Builders to amend Lincoln Municipal Code Section 27.72.020 subsection C, exceptions to the minimum lot requirements residential, providing that a vacant lot is at least 40 feet wide and was final platted prior to November 2nd, 1953, may be used for a single-family dwelling, two-family dwelling, or other permitted uses where applicable, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bowers, seconded by McGinnis. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. 7B, change of zone 15013A, application of Lincoln Federal Bank Corp. to amend the Eastmont at Yankee Hill planned unit development to allow residential, office, and commercial uses with associated waivers on property generally located at the southwest corner of South 52nd and Yankee Hill Road, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bowers, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7C. Amending various sections of the Lincoln Municipal Code to redesignate the Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality as the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second?
Introduced by Bowers, seconded by Ward. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7D is amending various sections of the Lincoln Municipal Code to redesignate the Public Works and Utilities Department as the Transportation and Utilities Department and the Public Works Director as the Transportation and Utilities Director, and redesignating the Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality as the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bowers, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Yes.
I still think we should add safety to the beginning of this title.
Okay.
Safety, environment, energy, no, okay.
Thank you.
I'll just be quiet and vote.
Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Bowers.
I just got it. Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Rabel.
Yes, I got it, but I chose not to laugh.
Motion carried, 7-0.
All right.
Next is 7E, amending section 2.42.040 of the Lincoln Municipal Code to update the descriptions of division within the Urban Development Department to reflect the titles that have been in use since the 2018 reorganization, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bowers, seconded by Washington. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Next is item 7F, repealing chapter 8.28 from the Lincoln Code relating to nursing homes as they are regulated by the state, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bowers, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Item 7G, amending various sections of the Lincoln Code to update references to federal regulations regarding disability definitions, to eliminate a mistaken reference to an individual cost of living adjustment, to clarify the responsibility for making investment decisions, and to harmonize the city's pension investment standard, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bowers, seconded by Washington. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Item 7H is amending section 9.48.010 of the Lincoln Municipal Code to amend the description of marijuana to exempt hemp in conformity with the recent change in state law, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bowers, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Item 7I, amending Lincoln Municipal Code sections 10.26.435 and 10.26.470 to extend the length of designated arterial streets, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bowers, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion?
We do have a motion to amend number 1 to accept a substitute ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Tell us what it does.
Yeah,
Pulls
just
South
a
Street-
second.
Take South Street
It's
out.
to correct the designation of a portion of South Street as an arterial street, but because it does not conform with our access policy.
Not long enough.
Okay. So the motion to amend, any other discussion on the motion to amend?
Who seconded?
Richard.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Way to go, Richard. Way to go.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Now on the main motion.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
and Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Next then is item 7J, amending Lincoln Code section 2.76.160 to remove M from the heading as the M class reference was removed from this section on October 23rd, 2017, and amending section 4.08.070 and section 20.10.285 to correct typographical errors, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bowers, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Item 7K is amending section 4.54.020 of the Lincoln Municipal Code to allow flexibility in the number of required Community Forestry Advisory Board meetings, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bowers, seconded by Washington. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was at a neighborhood association meeting think it was Irving, and someone from the forestry board approached me and said, can we do more? He didn't feel like there was enough meetings and they were doing enough, so I think this will make him happy. I'm going to take credit for it, even though I had nothing to do with it.
Okay.
I went to forestry school.
Oh, you should take credit for it.
So we have two people taking credit for this one.
I like forest.
Okay. Seeing no further
Can I call the
substantive
vote?
discussion, let's call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
You were
Motion
at that
carried,
meeting.
7-0. Next is item 7L, amending Lincoln Municipal Code sections 24.42.010, 24.42.030, 040, and 070 to remove references to Chapter 4.10 of the City Design Standards as this chapter was repealed. Introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bauer, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Next is item 7M, amending Lincoln Municipal Code Section 6.02.380 to correct typographical error, amending Section 6.08.180, 182, 6.112.130, and 6.112.132 to remove references to a repealed section, amending Section 6.08.184 to correct punctuation errors, amending Sections 6.12.130 and 6.12.132 to remove references to a repealed section, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bauer, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Next is item 7N, as in Nancy, amending Lincoln Municipal Code Sections 8.02.010 and 8.42.010 to reference the correct sections, and amending Section 8.18.100 to correct a typographical error, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bauer, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion on typographical errors? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Item 7O, amending Section 2.76.040 of the Lincoln Municipal Code to put the listed definitions in alphabetical order and to provide under the non-career service positions definition that police trainees and fire trainees shall be eligible to participate in the vision plan, introduced by Bowers.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Bauer, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion?
It's good to alphabetize.
It is good to alphabetize. Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Last name starts with
And
C,
thank you to
right?
the legal department for all the cleanup to the Lincoln Municipal Codes. I'm sure they had fun.
Our resolutions on first reading are items 8A and B. We have one ordinance first reading, item 9A. Our pending list are items 10A and B. Anyone wishing to address the council on a matter not on this agenda and not planned to appear on a future agenda may do so at this time, since it is an open microphone session.
Senator Ken Hart, come on down.
Senator Ha.
Okay, and if you would pass these out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Senator Har and former Lincoln City Council member. We're glad to have you back.
Thank you very much. The two pins I'm wearing, my legislative pin, and then James borrowed me his city council pin, so that's, and this is Al Gore climate reality training, so I'm full of buttons today. Just a funny smile here. When I was on the city council, I was the first person to bring my laptop to meetings and have it sitting on there. But I've noticed now that all the younger members of the council, at least, are using their laptop computers. We had.
With one exception.
Well, hey, my laptop is in the shop.
Okay. But we had prolonged discussion as to whether people appearing here would feel, that we were putting something between them and us. And we debated that for quite some time. But I'm glad to see that you're using them now, so. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for your service. I know how much time goes into the job that you're doing. I appreciate that. And as many of you know, my life's work for many years has been climate change. I just finished teaching co-teaching an honors class at the university in climate change, and that was quite a treat. Today I'm here to talk about net zero by 2050. And what that means, we're talking about, let's see, how do I put this? Like that? Okay. Okay, great. And what we mean by net zero by 2050 is that, as the statement under the elephant shows, if we have any hope of keeping climate change within safe boundaries, global emissions need to fall to zero within the next 3 decades. That was the message of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in 2018. Now, we're not talking about no carbon emissions. We're talking about level carbon emissions, net zero, so that we don't keep increasing the carbon in the atmosphere. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is an organization made up, it was formed by the World Meteorological Association and the United Nations, and involves thousands of scientists from 120 countries. So this proposal, really talking about net zero by 2050, is not Ken Haar talking. It's the work of many, many scientists around the world. And recently, OPPD adopted a goal like this, net zero by 2050, saying that OPPD by 2050, the 3 decades from now, would have a net zero carbon output. Now, some of that net zero, again, means that if there's carbon being produced and producing electricity, it would be offset in some way. So the reason I'm here today, I would like to urge you to join me in encouraging LES to make a similar goal. And again, it's not Ken Haar, it's not the environmental community, it's thousands of scientists across the world saying in 30 years, our electricity production has to be net zero. And then I want to talk to you briefly about the numbers that come from LES. And so that's the second page of this handout. Now, the first 2 circles are what are called the nameplate capacity of LES generation. And from 2010 to 2018, the nameplate capacity, in other words, things operating at 100%, shows that we're in a much better situation now in 2018. About a third from coal, renewable energy, and gas. But then if you move down the page to the big circle, it shows actually what LES dispatched from all of their generation resources in 2018. And as you'll see, 35% was from renewable, which is good, but 59% is still coal. And the way you'll hear the numbers, for example, I was seeing in an article, in a quote that was given to the press, saying that 45% of LES's generation, their retail generation, comes from renewables. And That's true,
1 minute.
but if you shift all of the renewables to their retail sales. And so I just want you to be aware of that when LES comes and talks to you, that really I believe what you need to ask, what's the total picture, not just what they call retail sales. The second handout I gave you, and if you have time and are interested, is about what OPP did in adopting a net zero goal by 2050. And there are some real things happening. For example, on a yearly basis, the staff will have to report to the elected board of OPPD elects a board of directors. They'll have to report in terms of how are we getting to net zero by 2050. A kind of a pushback from LES is that they can't really set goals for 2050 because we don't know how we're going to get there. Science tells us really we have to be there, or just let things happen, and I think that's totally irresponsible of my generation. And then finally, to keep this brief, I gave you an 11-page handout just to show you that we're not alone, OPPD is not alone, that there are many, many places across the country that are setting goals. Cities, states, and even a few countries are setting goals for 2050, knowing that we don't know yet how we're going to get there. And I was talking to one of the LES board members who's a financial advisor, and we agreed that if I'd have come to him when I was 35, which I wish I would have done, that he would agree that we would have talked about my goals for retirement, even though we weren't quite sure what the stock market was going to be, what my jobs would be, and so on and so forth. So again, I would like to encourage through you the LES board to adopt a net zero goal by 2050, knowing that we don't know exactly all the dots that are going to be connected to get there.
Thank you, Ken, very much. And I know that you have also made an offer to go through the climate change presentation that you have done for many organizations and many individuals. And so we certainly will get back to see when and how we can get it scheduled, either on a small group basis or perhaps in our commons meeting or even a pre-council meeting.
Good.
So,
I'd be happy to come one at a time and talk with council members. And I brought this along. I talked to this children's zoo. They wouldn't give me a real elephant for this. But truly, climate change is the elephant in the room as you make all of your decisions for the future. Things are changing, and this elephant is there, and you've got to be thinking about this in terms of energy generation, where housing goes, what zoning looks like, and all those other kinds of things. So that being said, I would like to answer any questions if you have any.
James Michael.
I just had, what do you think is the biggest misconception about setting a net zero goal? Like, what is the biggest misconception or myth?
Well, what people are afraid of, I believe, is, when we set goals, we like to make sure we can meet them, especially if you're working for government. In government, we don't allow much for mistakes. We don't ask our directors and so on to go into a project and go after it, and if you make a mistake, that's okay. Really, we don't forgive mistakes. We don't forget risks. But one prominent scientist, Catherine Hayhoe is her name, she said, there's no silver bullet for getting to 2050 net zero, but there's a lot of silver buckshot. And so we're going to have to try many things. Of course, wind, of course, solar, probably nuclear will be a bridge in that process. But even with all those things, there'll probably have to be some way to take carbon dioxide out of the air, and we don't know how to do that efficiently. Some people are talking about what is called geoengineering. Maybe you put, tons of little pieces of aluminum foil up in the atmosphere to reflect the sunlight, but there are all kinds of unintended consequences with geoengineering. So we don't know how we're going to get there, but I think we have to keep that goal clearly in mind with the things we do. And that's what I'm proposing.
And we know many communities are achieving that goal. Many communities around the globe are doing that, and many communities in the United States.
They're working towards that goal, at least setting the goal. And the whole idea of setting a goal, again, when you don't know exactly how you're going to get there, is something we do all the time, and we need to keep that in front of us. That's my opinion. Any other questions you might have? Well, thank you very much, and I'll wait to hear back from you in terms of Climate Change 101.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to testify at open mic?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have three things.
Yes.
The first is to remind everyone that the next week we do not meet in celebration of Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday.
Hear, hear.
The second thing is remember the golden rule. And the third thing is I move for adjournment.
Second.
It's moved to adjourn by Christensen and seconded by McGinnis. Please call the roll.
Schob.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes,
Motion carried, 7-0.
we are adjourned.